sorry. When you said you have an incredible partner, I got lost in a daze. I was lost. I was lost just focusing on the object, the apple of my eye.
Is it a Granny Smith?
It's a golden delicious, actually. People would ask, well, what do you do when you're not doing that? What we see on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I love about our relationship is we are both very adamant about connection. And I think the foundation of any life that is fulfilling, meaningful, whatever, is rooted in truth.
They're telling me like I'm body shaming, or I'm fat shaming, or I'm, I shouldn't prey upon overweight women.
Instagram has banned us and flagged the account, so.
Yeah, and why are our feet always cold? On probation.
We are on probation. Do we want to start there?
No, let's give a life update.
Okay. Good job.
Welcome to the podcast, guys. This is episode 90 for the Maverick Willett podcast. I don't know how many episodes it would be for you. Probably like 577.
No, I think.
Don't check. It doesn't matter.
That she checked.
Yeah, welcome, guys. Today we're going to talk about, first, just brief life update, meander, if you will. And then we are going to, how many episodes, babe? I know you got to know.
I do. Hold on. I'm going to tell you. How would I know? Go to the bottom.
You're not even going to post this on yours, so.
How do you know?
Yeah, you don't know.
That's
okay.
155, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60, 1, 2, 3, 63, 163.
163?
Yeah.
Cool. So anyway, we're going to talk about
Cool, don't give a fuck.
meaningless data. We're going to give a brief life update. We're going to talk about the post we just did that was polarizing.
Dumpster fire.
Jesus, got taken down by Instagram. And
literally like minutes ago.
Yeah, right before we started. And then we're going to answer some questions you guys submitted, as always. Give as much value as we possibly can.
Do you post your Q&A link under your podcasts? Because you should.
No, I don't.
Let's do that.
You do the anonymous one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll do that. Thank you. Also, just before we even dive in here, want to touch on one thing, which is, okay, people have asked questions like, you guys, is your program together? You guys doing the same thing? Like, what are you guys doing? So, yes, the answer is yes. We're in the process of combining what we do, because it's, you put it best a while back. It was, you go fast by yourself, you go far together. And I truly believe that of the both of us. We both have complementary skill sets that are, our message is very similar, and the way that we want to help people in this arena is very similar. So that's what we're doing. That's why you see so much content together. It's very easy for us to make content together. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time. My direct quote around this is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
There it is.
So we both have different strengths, respective skill sets, similar principle, different perspective. And I think collaboratively, we're going to be able to impact more people in a much deeper way. He and I both really respect depth. He's alluded to this previously as far as like knowing that, nutrition, training, all those things are kind of tick boxes. And there is an essential piece of education around those things for sure. But it's also much deeper than that. And so being able to pair like what we do in my business and what he does in his business and make that into its own unique, beautiful animal that will be transformative inside and out, I think is really special. So yeah, it's in the works.
Scoot a little bit closer to me.
Come a little closer, baby.
There it is. Good. All right. I was just looking at the frame on the screen. Yeah, so excited about that. Get situated there.
Did I just pull the table?
No, you're good. So,
She-Hulk.
Indeed.
Y'all want to see me deadlift too, huh?
You should. So, after I asked everybody if they would like to see a training video of you, I got a lot of responses saying, yes, please. Kait needs to do a training video. So that's coming soon. I'll film you. It's super cool. That's going to be awesome. Can't wait for you to make that. But yeah, so we're going that direction. both of us have killer teams. Both of us have killer programs. It just makes a lot of sense to do it as one. So that's what we're working on now, just to clear that up. So just so you know, yes, it is it is the same program. We're just in the process of combining the things on the operations side, on the delivery of the program, the teams, all that stuff is taking place. So working on that now, just so y'all have an update. Also, life update. We just got back from the trampoline park not too long ago, about an hour ago, with the Bean. He's currently playing a little Nintendo while we record this real quick for you guys. And then we'll get back at it. But I wanted to talk about that because we went there, and as you noticed, both times we've been, we're the only parents out there on the trampolines.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you're not a parent quite yet, but yeah. So like I always notice that we're the only, I'll say, adults out on the trampolines. Everyone else is on the couches,
In their phone.
looking at their phone.
Yeah.
And I think that's sad. I'm not judging anybody. Those of you that love to call me out for your perceived judgment, I'm just alluding to the fact that
Well, hold on. Like, even if there is judgment, you would have to be completely blind to your own tendencies to judge people. We judge people all the time. You guys are judging me listening to me speaking right now, right? You have perceived notions, assumptions. Like, we all naturally do this as human beings. I'm not saying that harsh judgment without self-reflection is useful. Absolutely not. And when you judge somebody, again, you make a ton of assumptions around what they're able to do, what they're capable of doing, what they value, like as if they value the same things that you do. I think just having the awareness over the fact that people have different proclivities and different things in which they prioritize within their day-to-day, yes, then you will make judgments, but all of your judgments are based on yourself and your perception and, again, like values, beliefs, family systems. So, like, to the tune of that, you do judge people. So do I. So does everybody. I think that the awareness over the judgments that you make and then shifting into a lens of curiosity, knowing that you don't know what you don't know, is a better way to build the ability to connect with people. But I really, the idea that nobody judges anybody is asinine.
No, I judge people all the time. Maybe I meant more of like shaming them for not,
Oh, well, that's
being out there.
reflective of the post that you posted.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. But I guess what I was leaning more towards was just gratitude to be able-bodied, to value being active with my child, I value being able to do that together. I am grateful for.
We have a lot of fun.
That's a
We
lot
had
of
fun today.
A lot of fucking fun, man. I was telling you, if they had a trampoline park when I was in 8th grade, I would have never come home. I would have slept there because I loved the trampoline when I was younger. Me and my best friend, when we were younger, used to jump on the trampoline, pretend we were professional wrestlers, just throw each other off. It was awesome. But if they had basketball goals next to a trampoline, like I would have never come home. That is the coolest thing ever. But now at least I get to do it when I'm 34. And again, I'm just grateful that I'm able-bodied enough and I've taken care of myself enough. And I value play enough with him to be able to do that. I look around. And I honestly, I can't believe how many people are not doing it, or not even. I mean, I'm not saying you have to get out there and do a front flip, but like even the other stuff that you can do there. I mean, there's just no adults doing it. So and they give you a wristband. Like, are you jumping too? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm jumping. But I was just grateful. I'm grateful we can do that, and grateful I can do that with him, and grateful that you can do that with him and wrestle and all the cool shit that we do with him. So that was fun. But beyond that, man, God dang, we're busy. Our life feels like a blur, dude.
I really struggle with that sometimes because.
Hold on one sec. Sorry. Forgive me.
Okay.
Forgive me.
Pausing. He needs to fix his Mav cam.
Okay.
Make sure he's got the right angles and shit. Are you happy now?
Okay. You struggle with that sometimes. Go for it.
Yeah, because life is really busy. I think it gets busy for everybody, but I have also been in spaces in my life where I feel like it just becomes repetitive, so much so that it's almost like Groundhog's Day. And I think One of the things that's been very illuminating for me in our relationship is like I've been much more present throughout the span of our time than I've been in a long time, because I just got into the space where every day was wake up, work out, walk, work, bed, wake up, do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And, you know, all of that comes with some benefits, but there's also a lot of cost. And one thing that I think it was in the show that we're watching, Your Honor, which is really good if you guys haven't seen it.
Great show.
Right. He was talking about last night when we finished that episode about this moment is all you have. You know, you don't realize it when you're young, but eventually time is the most important thing, and you can pass it by really, really quickly. And for me, that was very eye-opening as far as a reminder. It's not that I don't know those things to be true, but you can get so caught up in what needs to be done and all the to-dos and the achievements that you're focused on and like all of these things that feel insurmountable sometimes, where you lose sight of like, hey, I'm under a roof with people that I love more than anything, and I can laugh and I can play, and life's not that serious. Because I'm going to die. No matter how successful we are, no matter how many lives we impact, no matter what it is that we create, build, write, publish, whatever it might be, I will die, and people will forget about me. And so it's like accepting that gives me the permission that I need to go, okay, it's not that big of a deal if it's not done right now. That doesn't mean people will take this an inch and take a mile. It doesn't mean don't do anything. Doesn't mean don't have ambitions and don't hold yourself to high standards and don't aim to accomplish things. But it also means if you can't get it all done right now, that's okay. And also understand the importance of creating space and time to be present, I think, is ultimately something that we can neglect to do because it always feels like there's so much to be done.
I'm really glad that you're finding more of that. It's something I struggled with for a very long time, years, especially when I was building my business and this company. And, you know, when you talk about cost, you know, I had such a big time protector or like an inner slave driver that was like, you got to go, go, go. If you're not on your phone, someone's beating you. If you're not on your phone, someone is ahead of you. If you're not on your phone, you're missing something. If you're on your and so like I would live to my phone, and over time and through work and like wanting more of, you know, when I sat down and I said, well, what do I actually want to feel more of in my life? I wanted to feel more presence, more peace, more aliveness. That's a thing, and more wholeness. And you know, I happened to work with a good mentor that really helped me with all of that. But once I shifted focus to here's the coolest thing. Once I shifted focus to just cultivating more of those things and kind of, you know, I'm still working on this, but consistently asking myself every day, how would I check those boxes? How would I feel more of those things today? Ironically, I started making a lot more progress in my career too, because when you get so into it, just the work and the grind, you over time, at least in my case, I would start to get blind by my own grind. That rhymes. But I would be less open to opportunity. I would be less. I would opportunity would pass me by because I just would have my head buried. You're not creative when you're in that mode. So for me, I found not only a lot of peace and kind of pivoting and letting go of the need to constantly progress, but also, ironically, found more progress in career due to that.
It's called the law of reversed effort, which I think is, I've written a few emails about this. That's why when you brought it up, it triggered that because I wanted to make sure I had the title right. But it's essentially like the more that you try to put pressure on something or make it come to fruition or achieve something and you like grasp it so tightly, it's like sand that just escapes through your fingers. Whereas if you just loosen the reins a little bit, oftentimes things will come to you. It's almost like forcing something that's not, because you're so in the weeds, you can't see the forest through the trees. Whereas if you give yourself a little bit of grace and zoom out a bit and look at the entirety of what it is that you're focused on achieving and the benefits of doing it and knowing the red lines that you need to have in place, it allows you to pursue it in a manner that's more meaningful than it is anxiety ridden. Like those internal contracts that we make with, I can't be happy until I achieve this, or I can't have this thing until I hit this milestone. And there's these, you know, unwritten agreements that we make with ourselves. That's like, you cannot experience this thing until you have this, right? I can't experience confidence until I have abs. I can't find a partner until I've reached this perceived level of success or beauty or, you know, whatever it might be. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that prolongs your ability to experience the thing that you actually want. Because oftentimes when it comes to a goal, we pursue that because we have an anticipated emotional experience that we crave having more often. So when it comes to career, right, you want to have financial resources. Why? Because you think it will give you peace and safety and less anxiety and stress. And some of that is true. But if you tell yourself you can't have any of those things until you make X amount of money, right, then you're just prolonging the process in which you stay stuck in a state that you don't want to. And when you're under a lot of stress, anxiety, frustration, depression, sadness, whatever it might be, you're not thinking clearly. And you're certainly not thinking to the highest degree that you possibly could. And so just like you said, as far as like thinking about the emotions that I want to feel, I've actually done this exercise and I tell a lot of my clients to do it. Think of 5 emotions that you want to experience more of. And then think about the last time that you felt them, and where were you and who are you with and what were you doing? And then, okay, well, if I know those things allow me to experience those emotions, how can I do those things more often? And then just doing that over time, like, really increases your baseline emotional state, which I have found personally, and I know a lot of people I've worked with have found so much benefit from doing that, because you can see things much more objectively and you can show up more emotionally stable, less stressed, right? Ability to think through things, articulate yourself, be present in a moment, versus like when you're on anxiety level 10, thinking about all the things that need to be done so that you can finally feel this thing that you desire. It's a slippery slope.
I find it beautiful how sometimes you and I, no, not would say sometimes, a lot of the time, you and I believe something that is the exact same thing, but we explain it in very different ways. Because I've practiced, preached, and experienced everything that you just explained, where it's just, you take the emotion. The way I explain it is, if you want a reality different from the one you're in, what feelings would come from that reality that you want, and then practice feeling those feelings and emotions, and it will lead to, however you want to chalk up it, how it happens, it just fucking happens. Like, either you wake up and you take different action based on those feelings because, like you said, your new baseline of emotional state is just at a higher, the gurus would say, vibration, or whatever you want to say, but you just operate differently when you sit in those elevated emotions versus when you're sitting in catastrophizing, stress, overwhelm, doubt, worry, ruminating on the past, basically future and past instead of present.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I call it center. That's how I kind of describe it. It's how I've described to you, like what I get from meditation. It brings me back to center where I can think from that place. So I'm really glad that, that's something you're experiencing more of. And I love that we meditate together sometimes now. And I love that we just kind of organically just started doing that. Like, one day I was like, hey, you want to meditate with me? And we did. And that's been really cool. I love doing that with you. And I like that afterwards we usually have some kind of connective conversation, because again, we're coming from that centered place. I think a lot of times in relationship, you can get caught up with old wounds, old stories, old patterns, and they start to take the wheel of the bus. And for me, when I meditate, it gives the wheel back to the centered part of me, the one that comes from love, the one that comes from gratitude, abundance. And when I behave from that place, it's never a bad look. It's never a bad decision. I always make the best decisions. And I'm also the most creative from those places where I have the best ideas for content, so really appreciative of that. So life's fast. We do a lot of stuff, a lot of collaborating, which I really, really enjoy. I do want to say, and I told you this in the car earlier, I explained our entire process as best I could for creating a YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
Went into that. And then, yesterday you were listening to your YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
And because we obviously, when we get a draft back from our editor, we watch it and we go through it, and we go through it, and then we pick out like things we want to change. We make comments on the video, etc. And so it was really cool to listen to that video and hear parts that we had scripted together. That was really nice for me. I really enjoyed that process with you. So that part of our work I really enjoy. But we do a lot of that stuff. We're kind of all over the place at the moment because we're doing so many things. And so we've just been trying to find a balance, which I think is hard for a lot of people, but especially when you're doing a lot of the stuff that we're doing, it becomes a blur. It's like we're not working, we're sleeping, there's barely time to eat or work out, and we're balancing a lot of stuff.
Well, and I think the beautiful thing about what we do is I can speak for me. Like, I'm incredibly passionate about the things that I pursue, right? I'm one of those people that's like, we've had this conversation. The most successful people in any domain are ones who can stay with something very consistently over a long period of time. I really respect people who can do that. I'm not necessarily somebody who's like that. So if you followed me for a long time, you know that my business has come to reveal itself to me the more that I've explored my own natural curiosities. And so, like, I didn't start off in psychology. I didn't start off focusing on behavior change, relationships, temperament, personality dimensions, attachment theory. Right? I didn't start there at all. I started off in like athletics, D1 athletics, and then bodybuilding, and then hit rock bottom in my life. And my journey is reflective of the things that I pursue. So, like, even regarding like my YouTube channel, like that, those passions for me, especially understanding evolutionary psychology and the differences between men and women, and how do we optimize human fulfillment and flourishing, and where does that come from? And it all starts in your head. But even those things, our ability to discuss that, I find a lot of value in getting different perspectives. Like, my comment section's freaking wild sometimes, but like, I do read them, and I do open my mind to the fact that I don't know what I don't know, and I do not assume at all that I know everything, because that would limit my ability to grow or serve the people that I ultimately want to help. But either way, when we have free time, like, I'm reading, and I'm reading around concepts that I'm going to include in future videos when I get better understanding, or the research that I need to pull. So, like, even in the times that we have downtime, it's still focused around a lot of the things that I'm interested in.
So one might ask, what do we do for fun?
What do we do for fun? Well, we go to the trampoline park. We play with Bean when he's here, for sure.
Bean honestly is what gets us doing fun stuff most of the time.
But like, I don't want to. I personally, like, maybe it's not fun for you, but I enjoy creating. I like scripting. I like thinking of ideas. I like filming the videos that we do. I like podcasting here on a Sunday. Like, this is not unfun for me.
No, of course. And I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying leisure. Like, you know, like what, of course, we have a lot of fun doing what we do with work, but people would ask, well, what do you do when you're not doing that? What we see on the screen?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I love about our relationship is we are both very adamant about connection. And so, like, we'll go for a walk, we'll have a conversation, right? We'll just connect with one another. I also enjoy going to the gun range and watching Mindhunter or Your Honor when we have, like, at night when we're both just brain dead. Like, we'll just kind of be able to do that. Sometimes we watch it, sometimes we don't. We end up in a conversation. But, yeah, I think there's also an important thing to note here is our lifestyle isn't necessarily made for everybody. You guys may not value the things that we do or have the desire to chase your passions or ambitions to the same degree that we do, right? It's all about not just what you're oriented towards, but speed and then thresholds, right? My life used to be 100% work. So anything less than that is tolerable for me. That's not everybody, but I can say that transparently, moving into a place where I now have a partner that supports me very much, believes in me more than I believe in myself sometimes, and can help push me to a growth edge where I'm allowed to dream again. Whereas, like, I felt like I was playing in an arena where I did what was predictable. I enjoyed it. There's no downside to that, but it wasn't ultimately like the passion that I had internally, or the driver of, like, if I could do anything, right, I'd want to do this thing. And now I'm in this container with an incredible partner who's very supportive of me and believes in me to be able to start to pursue other things. And I think that's reignited a lot of my drive and my passion towards intellectual pursuits, which I very much enjoy. And it's given me the ability to give myself permission to do that. And so I'm very much immersed in learning right now. And I really do enjoy it, on top of, like, school stuff that I have to accomplish and finish. We just did trauma. So that was a huge, very emotionally draining semester, but very, very deep. And I'm really grateful for the mentors that I have there as well. But all of that to say, like, just because we live this way doesn't mean that you do. But as far as what's fun, like, I've constructed my life in a way where every day is fun. Every day I do stuff I enjoy doing.
That's ideal. Yeah. Sorry. When you said you have an incredible partner, I got lost in a daze. I was lost. I was lost just focusing on the object, the apple of my eye.
Is it a Granny Smith?
Mm-mm. It's a golden delicious, actually.
Ooh. And then Fijians.
Delicioso. Oh, yeah, I got you. Yeah, some jeans that fit just right. So, you know, it's one thing that come up for me when you were saying that is, like, because you are who you are, and you know, having a partner who I can do some really awesome stuff with and create and work with, and you get everything that I do within my career, which I've never had. Um, it's it's helped me relax into what I like. There's a lot, obviously there's a the career is the career. The purpose for me is especially since we've met has become even more clear. It's fatherhood, family, um, partner. You know, that is those are that's what really drives purpose, and the career is a way for me to drive that. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is because you are who you are and you are driven, ambitious, and are a catalyst for career, it takes a lot of pressure off me to be this, not I won't say the sole provider, but the sole source of, like, if it was just me that was doing all of these things, I would sometimes feel. I mean, you know as good as well as I do. If you don't have anybody else that gets it, you got to find somebody who gets it,
Mm-hmm.
like online or what have you. And we both have had contacts throughout the years who we could talk to about coaching stuff or talk to about being an entrepreneur or what have you. Because it can be lonely, especially when you are just behind a camera all day long. And I'm not trying to say we, you know, first world problems or or you know, we're suffering or anything, but it can be lonely because it's like for years I had never even met another coach in person until like a few months ago, and then
A
before
few
that,
months ago? Me?
no, before you, I had gone to the coaching event in Orlando.
Coaching Con?
No, yeah, maybe.
Jason Phillips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to that. That was the first time I'd ever met another coach that does what I do. And even then, they don't do quite what I do. You're the first person that I've ever met that like does it to the same extent. We'll say the same level. I hate to say level, but you know what I mean. So that was, you know, so that having that in my home, in our home is cool. You know, and again, it takes a lot of when I don't. You give a lot of times when we brainstorm, you give me ideas. I would, you know, it makes the brainstorming process easier. You'll give me a super good idea, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna run with that, or vice versa, and like cuts my brainstorming time in half. So there's less pressure there for me to come up with ideas because I can run them by you, and you can validate or say, maybe let that play out. You know, all of it with the creation process and everything, it just makes it a lot less. It makes it more fun, more relaxed, less pressure, and I can then focus more on the other shit I want to do because it's like, well, if I'm, you know, in here with Bean, she's in there working, or you know, what have you. It's like no, it never stops. Both of us are driven. Nobody has to tell us to get up and go kick ass, and I'm just really appreciative of that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a benefit. The other thing I'll say um, is Mav and I think differently. We agree at principle level with 99.99% of things, but the openness and humility that we bring when we have ideas or thoughts or whatever it might be, like and this can get into a very complicated topic of conversation, so I'll try to keep it very simple. Understanding like where your strengths are and where your partner's strengths are, and that doesn't mean that one comes at the consequence of another. And I think that finding that balance for a lot of people is really, really difficult. And also for me, knowing that like I trust Mav with everything. I really do. And so with that, I can bring an idea, I can challenge or push back, and we both are very open and receptive to when we do that, so long as we're in a good headspace and emotionally in the right place. But I also default to his decision making. So like I can say I disagree with that, or what if we did it this way, or I think maybe we could go that way. But if he has a conviction around something and truly believes that's the right step, I'm not going to sit there and become adversarial. I don't find that to be effective because either way, we think about it, we hear each other out, we take the step. If it falls short of what we were aiming at, we can learn from that experience. And so I never see it as like life or death. It's just kind of like, did we think this through based on everything that we understand about what we want, how to get there? Here's our options. What's our best play? I think it's A. You think it's B. You have a strong argument for B. I have a strong argument for A. At the end of the day, I default to B. And if we have to come back to A, we will do that. And I think just having that level of respect as a default always and understanding where my role is, that doesn't mean I'm passive. It does mean I pick my battles. And I think the ability for us to both do that respectfully allows us to also move at a good pace with what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for what you are just really better than me at. Like, you have more skills in certain areas. One of those areas being, very obvious is like the back end of a business, the teams, the operations. And I really just like, I'm like, go for it. That is your arena. And by the same token, when we create content together, you've given me a lot of the freedom there, and that's just really cool. I mean, it speaks to what you just outlined, which is having mutual respect and also detaching from ego too. And that's like any good team does that. When you look at what makes like a good basketball team, it's like the teams that have the superstars that can't play well together because of their egos, they ultimately get traded mid-season because it's not panning out. The teams that can make that sacrifice and understand everyone's respective skill sets and work well together, they win the championship. And that's, I really like that about us. It's not always perfect, and we do have friction at times because our brains work so differently. But that fact in and of itself can help those situations. And I'm telling myself this mostly, but because I can be more strong-headed, I think, of the two of us. And in those moments when I've acknowledged that, well, she just sees things differently. And I could benefit from hearing what she has to say or understand what you're trying to convey. That has helped me in those moments where I feel maybe differently. But that's our strength, man. Those moments, those tense moments, have also brought a lot of growth, because the most important thing is the thing that we said from jump, and it's like nothing's more important than the relationship. Nothing comes before relationship. And if we always keep that front of mind, then we'll be okay. And I think we've done that. We've had to double back a couple times, be like, wait a sec, let's remember what's important here. And we always do, and that's something I really, really appreciate about you. Just really, really appreciate is you always do a wonderful job of, if we have a conflict or we have a tense conversation, coming back and, I need that. I need that person I need you to come and remind me what's important. And then I immediately just melt because I'm like, man, this woman.
Well, I think too, like, I think this speaks to how you've experienced me from even when you met me. I think one of the most important things that I really appreciate about myself and things that I've had to really come to terms with based in reality is a value means nothing if it's not embodied. And so if I say to you that I always want us to repair, that I will always prioritize our relationship, that I'll always circle back and we will repair what's going on and learn from this and move forward, I am not going to sit there with us holding a gun at one another, waiting for the other person to, pull the trigger. It's like, if I made that commitment, it is my responsibility to uphold that commitment as your partner, as who I am, as for me to be satisfied with who I am as a person. It comes back to the rules that I have for how I function. If I say I'm going to be that type of person, it is my responsibility to be that type of person, which means I have to lead with humility the majority of the time. Because if I focus on winning an argument, being right, proving a point, trying to pull some layer of superiority out, it's not ever going to bring me what I want. And so, like, that's the trade-off. It's constantly, like you would say, take the low road. And if you are in a space where you're not going to take that step, I will, because it's not about me. And I think I've continued to be proud of myself for my ability to do that. I think I'm really grateful for our ability for you to meet me there when I need to take that step first. But it's not easy. Like, this is the other thing too, is like, I've spent a ton of time, like, for those of you that know me, I've been on a human behavior, psychology, existential journey for like a decade now.
Can I hit on one thing before you go into the clouds in a good way? I just want everybody listening to really, really underline everything that she just said, because her commitment to that was what allowed me to heal a lot of shit around not trusting people to be who they say they are. Because of her commitment to responsibility within the relationship, I had some growth that I needed to do, but I couldn't have done that had she not been that person and given me the space to do that and develop that trust. So there are a lot of men who fear having their vulnerabilities weaponized against them, or fear taking that low road, or fear being humble in a moment of conflict, asking, how can I best love you today, instead of trying to be right. I used to be one of those men. due to both lived experience and stories I had created. Her being like that and having those convictions and those values and holding true to those, the duration of our relationship is what allowed me to heal those parts of me. So I just wanted to underline that. Go ahead.
Well, I think even like regarding that, it kind of pulls into the same tandem. There are so many things in life that are easier to do. It's easier to stay on the couch. It's easier to watch Netflix. It's easier to avoid conflict. It's easier to walk away and be stubborn. It's easier to blame somebody else for the problems that you're facing instead of taking responsibility for them. It's easier to cheat than to stay in a relationship where things are a little tumultuous. It's easier to seek out validation or admiration from an outside source if you feel distance. Like there are so many things that humans, and I understand this, like naturally will gravitate towards, right? It's the hedonistic impulse, whatever the lowest level of resistance is that I have to overcome in order to experience some positive emotion is what most people will do. Knowing that, I want to be not average, right? I used to tell myself when I was playing basketball that I was allergic to mediocrity. And so because of that, and that's a promise I've made for myself in my perception of mediocrity. So like, I'm not saying anybody who's listening to this is mediocre. What I am saying is I have perception of that I don't want to be. And in order for me to do that, then I have to choose to do what is the most difficult thing, which is upholding my values, living those out, regardless of how I feel about doing it. Because fucking A, like there are some times where I like want to be right. It's not that I don't have the proclivity or the desire or the frustration or the stubbornness. I can definitely be that. Like my dad will tell you, I can be a fucking bitch, and I can be. However, I'm very aware of that as far as like my nature. And it's like, okay, well, is that going to make me proud if I sit there and aim at being right? If I decide to withdraw, if I'm going to stonewall somebody, if I'm going to create distance, is that actually bringing me what I want, or is that going to hit my ego for a momentary piece of time? And so I think if you can zoom out and play the delayed gratification game of like, even though this will hurt right now, or even this is ego, self, we have a rule where it's like tell each other the truth, even if it hurts our feelings. Like those are all there for the reason, because it forces you to do the difficult thing, which most people will not do. And so being able to commit to those things, for me, at the end of the day, being somebody who's always been my biggest critic, I'm at least satisfied with the person that I am, and I can be okay with that. That's somebody I can be proud of no matter what. And so those choices and those decisions and those commitments, I don't care what anybody thinks about them. I really don't. They work for me, and they allow me to be at peace because I have to live with me, just like you all have to live with yourselves. Doesn't matter what you think of me. I love what you think of me. But it's like I am living with me in my head forever. It's like I want that to be a peaceful place. And in order for me to achieve peace there are certain things that I have to do and certain ways I have to operate that allow me to experience those things.
And I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from that early on, and it's something that I had been seeking on an unconscious level and a conscious level for a long time. I mean, I didn't think there were any humans like you. And
But what about that? You don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Like, we can cut this. But I'm curious. What about that? Did you believe so much so? Because here's the thing I know about people. They will believe something that justifies their own way of behaving. So if I don't, I'll use me as an example here. If I don't believe that somebody's going to be honest with me, it means that therefore I don't have to be honest with them because they're not going to be honest with me. Right? And I think oftentimes, and this is a human behavioral pattern, it's like if we don't trust somebody, then we're not fully transparent with the truth with them. And it's because we tell ourselves that they're not those things, that we don't have to be those things. And it's a mirror, and you just create this thing that justifies your behavior. And I don't think that's reality. I think that's perception that creates a reality that's not based in truth. And I think the foundation of any life that is fulfilling, meaningful, whatever, is rooted in truth, which is not always easy to do. We all have a proclivity to lie. Nobody teaches us to lie, right? I find the reason that people do this very interesting. People lie for two reasons. One, they're not willing to face the consequences of what they've done. Or two, they want to receive something, status, money, achievement, validation, for something they didn't actually do. Right? So people will pretend that they know a lot of stuff on the internet when it comes to health and fitness. Right? There's a million coaches that have zero credentials that will take your fucking money. Why do they do that? Because they can lie to you, and they can manipulate you, and they can use something that they read, a blip on something, somebody else, something that somebody else said that they've never read or researched or studied, no degrees, no certifications, nothing, and then paint this picture like they're trustworthy. They don't know those things, yet they can tell you that they do. And they do that because they can receive a benefit from something they didn't actually earn. This is why when people say, I don't believe in credentials or degrees, I don't think you understand the importance of somebody who's willing to pursue that and the time that they have to go through and the experiences and the just all of that. There's much more than just a piece of paper there, depending on what your specialty is. But I would say for everybody, I think that that's valid and valuable. But yeah, or you don't want to pay the consequence of the thing that you've done. You're not ready for that. You're trying to protect yourself and hope that you can dance around it. But the other thing I know about that is avoiding it leads to long-term pain, not just for you, but for the other person. So it's all relative to the difference between your perception of instant gratification, delayed gratification. And ultimately, I've told you this from day one, but I genuinely believe the side effect of truth is the best possible outcome, no matter what it is.
Okay. How was all that? I'm sorry. You went so far into it. I'm not sure where we started.
We talked about our relationship and difference in perspective, and then we talked about our tension sometimes and disagreement, and then my ability to come back to relationship first and why that's valuable and the reasons that I do that, which underpin a lot of my internal agreements that I've made with myself. And then, yeah, you talked about how me being that way taught you a lot of things.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Makes sense.
When you go for so long, I sometimes I'm like making bookmarks in what you're saying, but then the bookmarks, I don't remember the bookmarks anymore. So I needed to circle back to what started that. Okay. Now I'm with you. Yeah. So a lot of those, like, for me, for me, I look at it as it makes life a lot easier when you have these, I don't want to call them hard rules, but like agreements and values, and you have 3 rules, and those 3 rules happen to govern a lot of things. I adopted those rules because I thought about them for a long time after you told me, and I was like, well, actually, this makes sense for me getting to the outcome being having the reality that I want and having the relationship that I want. Those rules make sense to me if they follow those rules being always tell the truth, even when it hurts. I just said truth like a British person. Always tell the truth, even when it hurts. Don't ever say anything you don't mean, and don't ever ask anything that you wouldn't do yourself. Right. So, like, I'm paraphrasing. Those are the 3 rules. And I thought about those for weeks after you told me those rules, and I was like, yeah, actually, I like played each one out and how it would impact relationship and conversations and conflict and decisions, and I was like, those make a lot of sense. I'll adopt those. Let's make those our relationship rules. And it just having conviction in those, and then having conviction in who we are, having conviction in values, it makes life easier because it shrinks the pool of decisions one can make, especially when you always tell the truth. It just makes your life fucking easier, and I'm the biggest fucking example of that. Because I used to live the opposite. I was a compulsive liar there for a couple years, and God damn, I'm a lot healthier now than I was then, physically, mentally, emotionally. But I guess, as I've explained to you before, having lived that way, it made me appreciate so much more living the opposite and in the outcome of that versus the outcome of living the former. Like, Jesus Christ, like I look back and it's like, oh my God, I live like that. But yeah, so that's why I sit in gratitude so much, because there was a part of me that was like, I'm undeserving. I'm broken. I'm not fit for a relationship. And this relationship has done nothing but confirm the opposite. So, cool. Intimate, soft, relationship moment. Perfect. Let's talk about.
Was that a box that needed to be checked?
No, I was hoping that would be the result. I don't know if you've noticed, but whenever we go off on these existential,
I can't help myself.
That's okay. But I'm just saying, I love it. Please do it. Whenever we do that, we also, as a result, we get real soft at the end of it. So
yeah, because I forget we're on camera. You're the one that's always very good at remembering that. I tend to just think out loud, so I need to be precautious.
I'm just the damn rodeo clown on this. I'm the rodeo clown on this podcast. I just get the bull back in the, I'm also a clown, so it's fitting.
Mm-hmm.
The class clown.
Okay.
You're the bull.
Okay.
It'll make sense. I'll explain it later. I don't mean in a positive way. Bulls are awesome.
Oh, do we need to go into all of the things that you've called me in our relationship? Do we need to give the audience that information?
The thing is,
I don't know if men understand this, but your woman does not want to be compared to a very unattractive animal. You know, I just think that's...
Context is important.
You know.
I meant the traits of the bull. You're not built like a bull.
Just like the wallaby.
Strong like a bull.
Just like the wallaby.
Yeah, and you perch like a wallaby. You don't look like a fucking wallaby. Jesus. We made a post recently, and it got a lot of... it was polarizing, and I just... right before this podcast, Instagram took it down.
Instagram has banned us and flagged the account. So
yeah, fucking A, man.
Even if you turn notifications on, I don't know if you'll get them, but like feel free to do so because who knows.
The ridiculous part about it is that video's from Instagram. The video exists on Instagram, and then we react to it, and it gets taken down for quote unquote sexual content, which by the standards that they have there, it doesn't even violate those standards. But that's the game you play with Meta, man. They own you. So if we're on their platform at the end of the day, so we have to follow the rules. I will say, like, if you guys enjoy the podcast and us and want to stay in touch or learn from us, I would highly recommend you get on our email list, just in case we both, you know, Mav's a little bit more polarizing in his stances on social media, so not anymore.
We collaborate, and either way, if we just get deplatformed, you know, and you want to stay in touch, hit the link in the description of this video. Yeah, that's the thing. We can't control at the end of the day what Meta decides to do. So and again, like I see content like that all day, every day on other people's accounts. I see the people reacting to those types of videos, and nothing happens. It just, you know. So, but again, it's like, okay, that's the rules. We'll play by the rules. We won't do content like that because of Meta, not because of the response. Let me just be very clear on that. But it leads to the thing we want to talk about, though. The thing we want to talk about is because it's just, there's a lot of directions this conversation could go. But let's talk about the main pushback we saw, which is, first of all, okay, so like in the video, what was said was, you asked me what this is, and I said, what's a fetish? And I think we should play it. I think we should play it. We can't because it'll get taken down. Are you talking about our response to it? Yeah, okay, the React video. Yeah, just don't. Yeah, we just can't show it. Because I want you guys to hear what we said. Yeah. And it's like, you know, I want the conversation to be transparent. If this will play. Fast forward past the. Okay, so this lady's getting her belly smacked. What is going on? Fetish. This is a fetish? So I've seen this in the men's space too. There's like a belly fetish for men, where the bigger the belly, the more the kinker is turned on. That's like it's a thing. What is going on in the internet? Everything is going on the internet. But like there are certain things that don't need to be on the internet. We've got a guy drinking his own piss. We've got that. Well, I think it moves into a conversation about like social media being a platform to enable the mentally ill. People can go online and get validation for just about anything. This can cause a lot of trends very quickly that are not good long term. Period. I agree. We're heading in a really, really weird direction. Yeah. Okay, so that's the video. So one thing I want to point out first is the context of the video. So when we do React videos, we do them all at once. So right prior to that, we had just watched the guy who drinks his own urine, like on Mav picks out the video, so I don't even know what I'm going to witness. Some of them get sent to me, some of them I do pick out, and then so she hasn't even seen them. So, and again, I'm doing this because like stand-up comedians do this. Tom Segura and his wife do this. They react to stuff all the time, and nothing happens, right? So I'm like, oh, this is we'll just react. By the way, for those of you who haven't seen a fucking React video, it's just that we react to something. That's all. We watch a video, we react. That's it. That's the plot. There's nothing more complex than that. And that being said, Kait we had just watched the guy drinking his own urine. And then so when I say this leads to a conversation where we talk about social media enabling or creating a platform for the mentally ill, it was all those videos that we had just watched, not just this one that was in this video, which was the lady getting her belly slapped, right? And so people heard that, and what they chose to hear was that fetishes are mental illness, which I did not say. So, and this is where people didn't like how I said that, because one, I am not somebody, and this might show you my level of like,
By the way, disclaimer, we don't give a fuck about people's inflamed opinions. I just want to put that out there. This is not what this is about. We do want to talk about this video because it shines light on a bigger issue and a bigger topic. It's a good opportunity to talk about that. But as far as like people getting butthurt about the content we put out, couldn't care fuck less. Go ahead.
no, but it's like, okay, you're going to be the tone police because I'm not even well versed in what the hell a kink or a fetish is. It's not my domain. I'm just not somebody who's been in an environment where I understand all that shit. I don't. And so when I said that, I mean, how are we creating content for entertainment that is a woman getting her belly slapped by a man for the internet? That's what I meant by that. And so for people to then assume, because of their own perception, because they would probably judge somebody for those things themselves, which is why they just place that onto me, it's easier for them to say, I don't like how you said that for me, means that you're body shaming somebody or whatever it might be. Like, yes, I am judging the content. I do not understand. If you want to do that in the privacy of your own home, freaking go for it. I don't need to know about it. Why you would put that on the internet, I cannot mentally comprehend. So either way, like the comment section was colorful. I would say 90% of people agreed. There was a 10% of people that were very upset and then assumed that you were body shaming somebody because the woman in this video happened to have a belly, which was not even the point of the video. Again, the goal of the video, the reaction to that video, in its complexity, with the context of we just watched, I don't know how many videos we watched that were, to me, insane. Like, genuinely, to be on the internet. If you want to do that in the privacy of your own home, again, do what you want to do. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. Our point was, though, especially he as a child, that's 4, we will have kids. I do think that there's, and maybe there should or shouldn't be, I guess it's like, do we censor stuff? Do we not? Do we allow open discourse? I don't get to decide that. I do think, though, like, I don't know that needs to be on the internet.
Well, here's what annoys the shit out of me. And I'm way less polished than you are when I say this, but 2 things. Number 1, it's 2024. If you trigger jizz in the comments, it's a projection. Nobody blasts the comment section. You're probably sitting on the toilet you're spending time trigger jizzing as a comment. It is a broadcast of your wounds. You don't accomplish anything except for broadcasting something you are struggling with. If you have an intelligent comment and you want to engage in discourse, Kate and I both love that shit. Mm-hmm. We want to be challenged. We want to receive discourse. I love that. There was a couple people that actually provided legitimate points in the comments, and I engaged with them. But if you just trigger jizz, it's not my responsibility to regulate your emotions as a full-grown adult.
And the other thing I'll say about people, and this really frustrates me, it's much easier for you to make an assumption about what I said or what I meant than ask me a good fucking question. If you want to understand what was going on in my brain, instead of assuming what was going on in my brain, you could ask me what I meant by that, or what was this about, or are we missing context? Just ask a fucking good question. But everybody, again, this goes back to an earlier conversation we had in this podcast. People, it is easier to default to making an assumption than walking through with humility and asking a question to get the information that you do not have. My issue with public discourse.
Both of us also acknowledge the crux of having a platform is you're gonna hit the Walmart people. Like when a video gets views, it's like putting your post up in the middle of a Walmart at 2 a.m. It's not the kind of people you actually want to see your shit. So, because the way the algorithm works is it shows it to a portion of people who are your followers and people who are like your followers, and it does well in that demographic. Then it's going to get pushed out to a larger and larger and larger audience, and the larger audience that sees it, the smaller portion of that audience actually understands who you are, knows anything about you, and makes all these assumptions upon sight. Like on site, we have so many assumptions. But that being said, like we both accept that. Like go to Kate's YouTube, she gets fucking blasted all day long by people. Yeah. It just is what it is. When you make polarizing videos, or you just actually your videos aren't even that polarizing on YouTube.
No, my videos are very unbiased, actually.
Yeah, but like to the point that people will watch 5 seconds of you and make an assumption on your entire life without knowing you. Mm-hmm. And so I say that to say we're humans, we're people. That's part of the reason we do the react videos, to show you us just being people reacting to videos and then giving our take on them. You don't have to agree with that take. It's pure entertainment. That's what react videos are. They're pure entertainment. We may say something of value here and there, but it's mostly just to laugh. Like I do that for comedic purposes. It's just to laugh. And I think that, gosh, I mean, people still like to laugh in Western society. I think
But
it's
it's like
still
you
a thing.
can't make a joke at anything because it's, I don't know. It's just like, what are we even allowed to laugh at anymore? And again, I didn't even laugh in that video. I was more so like, what is going on? I don't understand. Because I would never. Now, maybe that's me projecting an assumption of my own beliefs onto other people as far as like, there are certain things that should stay in the privacy of your home. Like, I will own that. That is my bias and my belief. You can disagree, and we can even have a conversation around that, right? It creates shame for other people who might have similar proclivities, and so to see somebody else doing it publicly allows them to have the confidence and, whatever. Also, I can still disagree, and we can understand each other and still disagree, but that could have been a much more compelling conversation than just shitting on people or assuming stuff without asking a question at all.
Yeah, it's like my whole point in doing these videos. And look, we're probably going to pivot now and keep it to like React. Our React videos will probably stay fitness or nutrition related because of Instagram ultimately taking this down and we getting penalized for it. But that being said, dude, we've been making fitness content for years, and there's only so many ways I can say eat less and move more, guys.
Well,
And if all I had to post, if you tell me for the rest of my life all I can post is fitness content, I quit. And so I need a fucking break from it. I just want to laugh. And to me, it's like, what do couples do? If the husband finds a funny ass video on the internet, he's gonna say, "Babe, look at this," and they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, what are they doing?" And they react to it. That's literally the point of the video, just seeing a couple react. That was why I wanted to do that content. But no more. You know what? You're not getting any more comedic content. From now on, I'm just going to explain calorie deficits until I'm blue in the fucking face. Every post will be caloric deficit. Is that what you want? Is that what you want?
No, I will not be participating in that for the rest of my life.
No, I would rather retire now.
All of that to say, as far as the comments, though, there was a comment that I wanted to share with you. I don't know if you saw it, but somebody made a comment around if this was a man with a beard. Again, people making it about the body. For me, I can't speak for him. My reaction to that had nothing to do with the way that this woman looked. It was about, why is she getting slapped in the stomach? And why is this on the internet? I didn't understand. But again, now that you understand my deficit in understanding kinks and whatever you called it.
No, it's kink. I call it a kink.
I think there was another word.
A belly kink?
No.
Because that is the thing. Because here's the thing, too. I just want to say this. We can't normalize fucking everything. All of you that is like, normalize it, let it live and let live. No. Literally leads to the downfall of society when we normalize every fucking thing. So no, some things don't need to be normalized. Sorry about it. I'm going to die on that hill. You don't need to normalize everything.
The other thing I think, and this is again, like I will be super honest about my values and my own biases and the things that I stand behind. I think intimacy with your body or with another person, that interaction or engagement is a sacred kind of thing, right? If you have a certain proclivity that like, what did I say? Jiggles your jimmies. Yeah. Like, you go for it with your wife. Like, cool. But like publicly talking about it, I guess I don't understand why. Why are we moving into a place where sex is everywhere, where like those types of things are celebrated and almost like just propped up as far as like, I don't understand that. I don't think it's to the fulfillment or level of respect, value that each gender embodies and should have. Instead, it almost diminishes the value of all of it, which I personally strongly disagree with. So that is my whole, like, I genuinely, I don't even know if I want to understand. I will just say I don't understand.
And I also want to push back on that comment, because if a man had been getting his belly, I would have been just as quick to react to that video.
I would have said the exact same thing.
I would have said
the exact same thing. What is that?
Matter of fact, I would have been more comfortable doing a video on a man getting his belly slapped for fear of the volatile reaction we might get. Because guess what? We wouldn't have gotten as inflammatory of a reaction if it were a man getting his belly slapped. That's not so. If I would have ran across an equally same video but replace it with a man, I would have been just as quick to do the video. But I guarantee you the response wouldn't have been as inflammatory. But That being said, it certainly does exist on the men's side too. I've seen it. It is a thing. It's actually more. I almost want to say it's more prevalent on the male side. It's like a bear. They call them bears.
Bears.
Bears, like big hairy gay men, are called bears.
Why?
I don't know. You'd have to ask that community. I just know that's.
Wait,
that's
is that the
thing.
same argument as like the man or the bear?
No. Very different. Very different.
Okay.
A bear is like a dominant, like furry, hairy, gay man. It's like usually a top. We don't have to get it really into the weeds here, but that's.
Well, this kind of brings up what we talked about in the car.
Which is?
The scrutiny against men versus the scrutiny of women, and why it's more why we tolerate it more against men than we do against women.
With the time that we have, do we want to go that direction, or do we want to go into body positivity movement?
Up to you. Flip the coin, 50-50.
Let's go body positivity.
All right, go for it. Start me off.
Well, I follow. We both follow Tony Bloom. Love his stuff.
Have you ever had a conversation with him?
No.
Oh, me either. You talk about him like you know him sometimes, and I'm like, oh,
I
wonder
wish.
if they've ever talked.
Seems great. We've maybe 1 or 2 DMs because I
We should
tag
invite
him.
him on the podcast.
That's a great idea. We should do that.
You guys, if you listen to this and you want Tony Bloom on the podcast, tell him
tell him
Kait
to
and
come
Matt
on.
have sent, yeah.
Yeah. But very, very like thinker, very common sense, energy balance focused, evidence based, personable dude, right? Really, really big fan of Tony. But he said in one of his videos where he has a couple of videos where it starts off and that the hook is that chick saying, "What's something that's such a scam we don't even know it's a scam anymore?" And the first thing he says, the body positivity movement.
He said it?
Yes.
Tony Bloom.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay. I haven't really consumed a lot of his content other than I feel like it's very educational.
Yes, and I know why you react like that because he doesn't do a whole lot of polarizing stuff.
Yeah.
But he led with that, right? I didn't really read the comments, but it's obviously I think you can speak a lot more to this, but for me, it just seems like anything else that gets to the extreme, it is no longer the original message, and it starts to get distorted, and it starts to be more harm than good, and that's one of those things.
Okay, here is something I think is very interesting that women should know about women. Women do not compete in the same way that men do, and this will make sense when I make my point. Women compete by reputation slandering, and by making sure that other women around them are less attractive than they are. Meaning, if you have a female friend who is attractive but overweight, and you empower her to stay overweight, it is a very sick and demented way to diminish the pool of women who are, I would say, more attractive in the perception of men as far as mate selection, by telling them to stay in this unhealthy place, right? So I think that is manipulative at best. 2, that also does not mean that there are not certain genetic limitations as far as what your body can achieve. And that is absolutely true. And this is where I want to make this point with the entire perspective in place. Your body will only do so many things relative to your genetics. How much muscle you can have, where your body fat stores, how much body fat you naturally carry, if you can have abs or obliques or you can't, whether you can grow an ass or you can't. Genetically determined. Now, if I say that and people take that inch and they run a mile, they will use that as a means to justify why there's no point in doing shit. I do not want you to go there. What I want you to understand is you are worth pursuing your health and fitness to the best degree that you can in a means that is sustainable and gives you longevity with the freedom that you need in your lifespan, without taking it to an extreme that makes you feel like you are inadequate, because there are certain things about your body you can never control. That doesn't mean do nothing, but it also means do it because it makes you better, not simply for the vanity of the pursuit in the first place. And I think that part of the conversation needs to be there, because being overweight to an extreme is not healthy for you. So call me not a girl's girl, whatever you want to call me. I don't give a fuck about those types of labels. My point being, I want what is best for you, which means you being in a healthy body. What that looks like specifically, none of my fucking business. Don't care, don't need to judge you for it, and I won't. What I don't want, though, is this idea that it is somehow empowering to let yourself go and then to be validated by that because you're so strong and so courageous and so brave. I don't. Yes, it is one of those things where when you're overweight, you can be incredibly insecure. Like, I've not ever been severely overweight. I've been on the upper limit of where I like to be, and I understand how insecure I feel. That because we alluded to this in the car, and I can bring it up in this point here. It's like women's value is based on the way that they look, always. No matter what, since the dawn of human time, women have been admired, pursued, validated, admired, gotten handouts, right? There's such a thing as like pretty privilege. And we pretend that it doesn't exist, but it does in certain domains. If you are attractive, you already have a one up. But that's pretty much how you get anything as a woman, is based on your perception of beauty. And so there's so much pressure on women to look a certain way, because that is the one thing that drives a lot of their value as far as cultural norms, societal norms, evolutionary norms. The reason that we produce, survive, and reproduce is based on attraction. We are still animals. We are still species. We still have our animal brains, mammalian brain, reptilian brain that drives a lot of our forms of function, whether we're aware of it or not. And so men, on the other side of that, they can be, as the Gen X, Gen Z squad would say, mid, and have a lot of success and be perceived as high value, even if they're not that attractive. They can still have other means of validation, admiration, achievement, love. Women tend to be based solely on their level of attractiveness. And so that's where I think men are much more scrutinized for shitting on women or speaking of their appearance. Women get by with saying the same things about men, which is a double standard, but I also try to just paint the picture as to why I think that is. And it is harmful to put pressure on women to look a certain way to the extreme. That pressure is insufferable, and I know that because I've lived it. I have to also imagine that it is insufferable from a health position, quality of life position, to push an extreme that is not good for you, based on the fact that people will validate you having courage and confidence to be overweight publicly and then tell yourself this story that that is also healthy or okay. Because objectively, ask any medical professional, being overweight is not healthy and is not okay. I mean, it is okay for you if you want to live that way, but as far as it being a thing that we should be celebrating, again, I see that as being harmful to somebody. As far as it's like telling an alcoholic it's okay to drink your fucking ass off from the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to bed because you're more fun. Like, what the fuck is that? I don't agree with it. You have the right to be in a healthy body that can look at any way you want it to. I just want you to be healthy.
I don't think I can add any context to how you just went through all that. I think that was extremely insightful. What it sounds like to me is where we start to confuse body positivity with glorifying obesity. And I see that a lot. I see it in the media. Obviously, we see it in Hollywood a lot with Lizzo and everyone else. And then Lizzo gets a lot of heat for trying to lose weight, which is wow. The same people that applauded her for being obese then completely turned against her for trying to get healthier. Mm-hmm. Speaking from my own lens where I've seen this, because again, I can't even add context because you just crushed it. Where I've seen it crop up in my own experience is me getting labeled certain things for putting out content where I speak to women trying to get healthier, where I speak to women trying to lose weight, or I advocate weight loss, or I advocate getting healthier, and then people telling me, just broadcasting wounds, but they're telling me like I'm body shaming, or I'm fat shaming, or I shouldn't prey upon overweight women with this advice or this guidance. That's what I have experienced in my own lens, and I think that's ass backwards.
I would like you to clarify something for me because I want to make sure that I'm not being confused. The difference between body positivity and glorifying obesity. Mm-hmm. Those are not related to one another?
From what I understood from you, they're not. Now, the body positivity movement, I think, is far gone from what started as body positivity, which was what you started with, which was, hey, yeah, you do have some genetic limitations and some you have a predetermined amount of fat cells. Like, we can acknowledge those things. To me, it's acceptance. To me, body positivity is acceptance of limitations, of genetic traits, of, like you said, maybe I can never have obliques or abdominals, and trying to force a round peg into a square hole is keeping me miserable. So
it's going to come at a cost. And I can tell you somebody who's done it. So again, learn from my mistakes. There are long-term consequences to short-term stupidity. And you will lose a lot of things that you find meaning in pursuing an aesthetic or vanity-driven goal.
Yeah. So Exactly. So I see a big opportunity for body positivity to be acceptance of your body and your limitations. But I think where people really went off the fucking deep end is saying just accept everything and then normalize being morbidly obese.
And the other thing I'll say around this too, which I think is an important point to make, you can respect yourself and dislike the way that you look. Right. So I can be, a lot of women will get into fitness, weight loss, and they'll try these really extreme fad diets because they think they need to get there and then maybe they'll feel good about themselves. You can acknowledge that you could be better than you currently are from a health standpoint to whatever domain in your life you want to look at. That does not mean that there's something wrong with you. And I need you to understand the difference between those two. You can be better and you should pursue health and fitness because it makes you better. Right. That doesn't mean that you have to tell yourself, I look great and I'm awesome and I should just be this way and I need to accept myself as I am. Maybe the reason that you don't accept yourself as you are right now is because you know you're meant for more. So go get that. You can, and you're more than capable. That doesn't mean you have to do it from a position of self-loathing or
Right.
self-hatred.
That's the difference.
You can do it from a place of, I deserve to experience better for myself, and it is my responsibility to do that. If you can just change the paradigm on that, a lot of the negative emotion or the suffering that you believe you have to go through when it comes to dieting will elude you because it's not relevant to the way in which you're going about doing it now. And I think that's important.
I 100% agree, especially with using self-loathing as your fuel. Speaking from my own experience, it's never sustainable fuel. It's never a fuel that fulfills.
It's potent. It is potent.
It's potent. Yeah, it's potent, but it's not. It's like relying on nitric oxide to make a cross-country road trip.
I'm just saying it feels like, as somebody who's done this many times, like, and again, I can be humbled by being transparent about this. I've done crazy shit to lose weight, to get shredded, to compete. When I played basketball, I ran reckless hours exercising, doing the crazy shit that I did. So that fuel source, from a lens of I am inadequate, I am not good enough, I am not beautiful, I am broken, like I need to suffer in order for me to feel like I earned this goal, whatever your narrative is, those are just some of mine. That is a very, 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 very potent fuel source. But again, it will cost you yourself in the process of doing that. And I say that as somebody who's done it and had to pick myself up off the ground in the aftermath of my own catastrophic outcomes from my self-negligence, because I did not respect who I was and I didn't value who I was. So I was just collateral damage in the pursuit of a goal, which I don't want anybody to experience, because that was rough. Coming out of that was fucking rough and completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary.
You had no hormones left.
I didn't have a lot of things coming out of that.
But now you have plentiful levels of hormones. Slay Hormone Solutions, your one-stop shop for all of your hormone needs. Speaking from the men's side of things, if anybody cares, we gotta pee. Oh, you gotta pee.
Go for it.
Oh my
Speak
God.
for the men's side.
The,
Keep going.
the bladder the size of a chickpea.
It's been an hour and 12 minutes.
Speaking from the men's side, while she's urinating, I always wanted to look like a lot of the tall bodybuilders I saw on Instagram and elsewhere. They had these phenomenal physiques, guys like Bradley Martin, especially. I always use Bradley Martin as an example because I just thought he had this godly physique. And I was in my early 20s, mid 20s, and I just wanted to look like that. And so we talked about limitations. We talked about genetic limitations. Well, I'm 6'5". I'm meant to be a swimmer or a basketball player. Like, I'm tall, I'm thin. I'm not meant to carry that type of muscle on my frame. I got small joints. And so, again, just speaking to genetic potential, I'm not on this earth to be a bodybuilder. And yet I was so convinced that I needed to look a certain way as a man to be attractive that I pumped my body full of steroids. I ate ungodly amounts of calories to try and gain muscle. I lifted weights 5 times a week, heavy as fuck, injuring myself in the pursuit of that. And at the end of it, I look up one day, I got this bloated ass face, my blood pressure's through the roof, I have erectile dysfunction. Like, Jesus, man. In my pursuit to look a certain way, from the pressures that I put on myself, the pressures I had from society, the validation I got from looking that way, childhood upbringing factors as well. I pushed so hard to look like that it was at the detriment of my health. I mean, I was in serious, like I didn't get, luckily I got off that elevator before I hit the ground floor. Stopped taking those things, I think when I was around 30, around the time that Denver was born. But I was so driven to have that physique that it was at the expense of my own mental and physical health. So just again, like, and we were talking about this earlier. On the men's side of things, men are more brutally, I think, criticized for their body. When I say brutally, I don't mean the volume of criticism. I mean the type of criticism. It's like it's in the acceptable. This is a wonderful conversation we had because how acceptable it is to criticize, like, for example, oh, you're balding, you got a small dick, you have dad bod, you have a belly, all these things about a man that can be pointed out publicly, and it's like accepted, right? Whereas if we flip the script, women I would get crucified if I said something like that to a woman, especially publicly. So, but then,
as I come on here with no makeup.
which you're beautiful without makeup. By the way, her freckles are real, you fucking mongoloids. Those of you who like say that she paints on her freckles, what the fuck is wrong with you? You probably typed that while you were like one hand jerking off to OnlyFans, another hand. Yeah.
You don't have to like my face. I can't change it, though.
I love your face.
It's interesting to me that we sit there and we talk about things that people can change, and the idea that you would point it out is really mean, rude, shameful, but then you pick on people for things that they can't change, and that's acceptable. I just find that to be hypocritical at best.
Yeah. Before you came in, I talked about
men.
Well, but before that, I talked about so body dysmorphia. I hit on my own body dysmorphia, and I hit on my like you had talked about the lengths that you went to try and accomplish something with your body that was a little bit outside of your genetic potential. Mainly when you hit on like you having visible abs, that was your thing. For me, I talked about how I wanted to look like these Instagram influencers like Bradley Martin, who had a shit ton of muscle, but I'm not on this earth to be a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. I'm on this earth to be an endurance athlete of some sort. Like, I have small joints. I'm tall as shit. I'm not supposed to be a bodybuilder. And yet I pumped myself full of steroids for years to try and accomplish that, only to find that I couldn't do it. It wasn't within my genetic capacity, and it was detrimental to my health in the process.
Yeah, the drive to be validated for your perceived attractiveness is a very difficult place to be. And again,
treadmill.
Well, and it's hard. Like, we talked about this in the car. Like, even people think I have filler. I've never gotten filler in my face, ever. I've thought about it a million times. And, like, it's that pressure of, like, everybody does it. Obviously, if lots of these girls are getting a ton of validation on the internet because their lips are voluptuous or whatever, like, maybe I'd be more attractive if I did that. By the way, I even went and got a consult. But it's so expensive to get that done, and it doesn't last that long. And I'm like, what? Why would I do? I couldn't financially make that investment in my face. It's just like, it's either
all
way,
real.
Either way, it's like
it's all natural. It's all real. It's all
either,
you, baby.
But I just say that from the lens of, like, it's so interesting to me. Whereas, like, when I talk to you about that, like, we've even talked about my lips and my desire to get filler.
My head almost fell off my shoulders when you told me you almost got lip filler. I was like, what the fuck you trying? What? Where? Like, what?
But I say that because it's one of those things, whereas, again, if you look on the internet, which we can all get lost in comparison, if a woman is posting pictures of her in a bikini and she's got abs, or maybe it's photoshopped, I don't know, but, like, you think you have to look that way to get validated or to be attractive. And so you'll push this threshold for yourself, and you'll evoke this unsustainable metric. Like, for those of you that don't know, when I went to get very, very lean, I was doing 3 hours of cardio a day. I was eating less than 50 grams of carbs, less than 20 grams of fat, and 160 grams of protein. So my meals were like chicken and green beans with sugar-free ketchup 3 times a day. And I would do 90 minutes of cardio in the morning, fasted, 90 minutes in the afternoon, and I would train for 90 minutes. And so, like, that was my life for a very long period. That was a full-time job to try to look a certain way. And so, like, there's a consequence to that. I didn't live a life outside of that. I worked, I coached, I was in grad school at the time, and then I worked out, and that was it. And so, like, again, there's so many things that I just think we lose sight of when we try to hit this societal standard. That, like, one thing I'm grateful for is the conversations that I find with men talking about what they find attractive in women or their partner. I love her stretch marks. I love her without makeup. I love her natural face. I like her wrinkles. I like, you know, cellulite or whatever it might be. But it's like, to the men who have the confidence and conviction to speak on those things, I think we need to, as women, need to hear more so that we can start to accept ourselves outside of the Beyonce standard or, you know, whatever your ideal symbolism of beauty looks like, because the odds that you achieve that are not necessarily realistic for most people. And as you get older, it doesn't look good. Like, I'll just say, women who've gotten like plastic surgery on their face, your body ages, even if your face doesn't.
You know we're gonna see here in the next few years playing out is all those ass implants when people get in their 60s.
Yeah, like I and again, like we've had conversations around this. I feel hypocritical even acknowledging that because I do have a breast augmentation. I did get that done for myself personally, but like, yes, there's some things around feeling attractive.
It's also different because, and here's why it's different. I agree with you. It's also different because your breasts aren't a muscle. Your glutes are.
Yeah, I agree.
One you can earn, the other one you can't. It's either there or it's not.
Yeah, genetically, it just wasn't a thing for me. So either way, yeah, I just think that just like diversifying your assets, it's important to diversify your value in the way that you find value in yourself, right? One of the things that I've talked about is I kind of overcorrected in the attractiveness layer of myself. I started to resent that relative to the types of attention that I would get and things that I found repulsive or degrading to me. And so I really pursued my intellectual strengths. And I very much value that about myself. I value my curiosity. I value my work ethic and my drive. I value my relationships in the way that I can support other people, the knowledge that I've pursued around psychology and the things that I've used for myself and being able to help people do that. So if you feel like that's the thing that you derive your value from, I think it's important that you diversify that and look at other things about you that make you you, because there are a million beautiful women who are much more attractive than me. And I'm not naive to believe any
Disagree.
different. But at the same time, I think there are parts of me that are unique to me. And those parts of me are things that I've had to continue to find value and appreciation for, because they are the things that make me me. Outside of the way that I look, they're intangible elements of a person that I think make them your person, just like when I met you. Right? There are lots of things I didn't know about you. And I've told you this very early on, especially once we got into a much deeper relationship. And you even said it to me, like, there are other guys that are attractive. Like, why would you choose me? Why'd you give me a chance? It's like, it's all of the little intangible things about you that are the counterpoint to me, that I would never compromise the integrity of that for something that looked more appealing. Like, it's just not in my character, but it's also not in my, I guess, heart, soul, however you want to describe that. Because we all get old and wrinkly, you know? And so it's like, beauty is a 10 millimeter goal. Whereas like being a good person with strong values and embodying high levels of self-respect, I think is something much more difficult, but has much more substance to it.
Yeah, I think.
Or I'm just saying that because I'm ugly, you know? Either way. I'm just saying. For those who will say that about me, I'm just going to validate that assumption.
Fuck those people. Anyway, expecting a marriage or relationship to like last based on physical attraction is like jumping in a pool without scuba gear and expecting to be able to breathe underwater.
Can you explain that? Do you have?
Because I don't care how you look, if we can't get through a conflict, if we can't tell each other the truth, if we can't support one another, if we can't have conversations of depth, if we can't have each other's back, if we can't have fun and play and laugh, have something to fucking talk about at dinner, if we can't grow with one another, evolve, if we can't go to places and experience things together, if we can't have a family, if we can't like what the fuck do I care if you have stereotypically societally deemed beautiful looks? Like it's like if you think that physical attraction is the only thing, and I'm speaking from experience, by the way, I've made this mistake. If this is lived experience, if you think that's what's going to hold a relationship up, that surface level shit, then don't expect to breathe underwater without any scuba gear. I think that was a really good analogy I made.
I think it was very good. Do we want to go Q&A?
I was gonna say let's go Q&A. My glucose is getting low, y'all. Here we go. Maverick gets grumpy when he's low on glucose. Let me pick a good one here. Weighted vests. I get asked this all the time. I would love to hear your take on it. We may agree, we may disagree. By the way, y'all, we don't have to agree on shit.
I just want everybody to know we don't come into these things with an itinerary. Just like the React videos or the questions, neither of us know what it's going to be.
No.
Which, like, I don't know if people really get that. So they can assume that this was, like, set up or, yeah.
No.
I have no idea what the questions are ever going to be.
If they've been listening, if you've listened to my podcast, pre-Kait, I don't script shit. And I believe you're at your best when you don't either. But that being said,
I didn't even learn to script until I started YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, and even that you usually have some filler in the
just bullet points, outlines, really.
Bingo, that's the way to do it. So weighted vest, yay or nay? So without getting too complicated with this question.
Do I ever not get complicated?
That's why I said that. So it'll take you from a 10 to an 8 when I say that, as far as the complicatedness. Okay,
complicatedness.
Complicate. You put the Kait in complicated. So weighted vest. I get asked this because here's why they're asking. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. They're asking because everyone wants to optimize and make things more effective, even though they haven't even established a baseline of behavior yet. So regarding this person's asking this because they think that if they wear, they've heard me say walk, right? They've heard me say go walk, track your steps. It's a great way to burn body fat, right? Lose body fat. They hear that and they say, but I can make it harder if I wear a weight vest, right? It'll be more effective. These steps will count more. I'll lose more body fat if I wear a weighted vest. Here's my take. I want to hear what your thoughts on this. Okay?
I know he's serious when he puts the finger up at me.
Yeah. And then I do the Trump hand. Weighted vests are the dumbest thing I've ever heard. All right, anyway. When I talk about walking, I'm talking about making walking a value, just being an active person. So your non-exercise activity category of your total daily energy expenditure increases. So just more active people lose more body fat, period, right? So if we just zoom out and say that, someone who walks more is going to typically lose more body fat unless they've made eating their job. They're going to lose more body fat than somebody who's not walking. We can definitively say that. So when I say walk, I just mean make walking important to you. Walk more often. Get a bearing on how many steps you take. I think that if you put a weight vest into that equation, you will walk less because walking will be harder for you. And you will overall burn less calories because the walking is harder. You'll take less steps. You're weighing yourself down. You're not going to walk as far, as long, etc. Generally speaking, right? I'm just generally speaking. So I do not recommend putting on a weight vest to make walking harder. Weight vests are for other shit, body weight exercises. If you're training for a specific event, if you want to put on a weight vest when you do squats or something like that, then they can have some benefit because it's resistance against gravity that can help you build muscle or something like that. But to use them while you walk, I think is not a good idea.
Okay, cool. My stance is slightly different. I think if all the variables that you forementioned are in place and consistent, and somebody's looking for a way to increase the difficulty of what they're doing, and I say go for it. That will add some resistance to it, making it more difficult. Just think about the difficulty, just like when you had a ruck, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was difficult for you to carry that weight.
Hell yeah. Okay,
so same principle applies. It will be more difficult. It will require more effort and therefore burn more calories. The intensity of the exercise that they're doing is higher. But none of that fucking matters if you do it less. You don't do it to the same distance. You don't, all those things being, again, the variables, if they are constant, and then you add this on top of it, it will increase a level of difficulty of what you're doing.
Bingo. And yeah, and again, so like I agree. If you were to walk the same amount and you add a weight vest, sure, absolutely. But if your walking declines, and if walking isn't important to you, then it won't make a difference. And if you haven't even began with tracking your steps and you're not even conscious of how many steps you're taking on a weekly basis, then I wouldn't even look at that. You got to add it in later once you've convinced yourself and trust yourself to walk with or without a weight vest. Let me find another one here. Why are our feet always cold? Yo, so on that topic.
Stop it. Stop.
Okay. All right.
He doesn't like that my feet are cold.
It's not that I don't like that your feet are cold.
He fucking hates it. He's mean about it. What do you say?
Corpse feet.
Yeah.
So listen, they need context. It's
no,
not.
that's it. That's literally all the
You
context
know what I'm
you
gonna
need.
say.
My feet,
You know what I'm gonna say. That's why you're
feet
trying to.
are cold, and he doesn't like it.
You
when
put
they
them on my
touch
back. You put them on my back in the middle of the night. My
It
warm
wasn't the-
back. My warm back. You put them
It
in the
wa-
middle of my warm back.
It
Who
wasn't-
likes cold feet on their back? Anybody in the audience listening right now? Do you like cold feet on your back? I didn't think
First
so.
of all, it wasn't the middle of the night.
Okay.
Second of
10
all,
o'clock when I'm falling
we were-
asleep. Even worse.
He wasn't falling asleep. We were awake, and he was giving me shit about my feet. And so I was like, "How do these feel on your back?" And I put them there. They
You
warmed
just
up because
straight
he
up-
runs hot. So
You just straight up lied.
no, I didn't.
We weren't even talking about your feet.
What?
We weren't even talking about your feet when this happened. You just randomly put your feet on my back.
No, I touched your leg, and you were like, "Stop, stop!" And then I was like, "No," and then I put them on your back.
Okay, the accurate story. Yes, that was accurate. Thank you. That
That's
was exactly what
I
happened.
said.
No, you said we were talking about your feet.
No, I didn't.
I can't wait to play this back.
Okay.
It's gonna be rough when you got audio records. Then you can't misquote me. That's how you know we're in. That's how you know we've put a little bit more time in our relationship. Does it matter if I break my weightlifting sessions into smaller, frequent 15-minute sessions 5 times a week as opposed to longer sessions 2 or 3 times a week?
No.
Overcomplicate. Two. Over. You are
Just
taking
get it
2 plus
done.
2 and splitting atoms.
Just get it done.
Get it done. Train hard. That's it. That is it. Because if by increasing your sessions, you train less intensely, you are jumping over dollars to pick up dimes. Have you and Kait talked about kids together? Speaking of kids.
Bean.
Hey, Bubba.
Do I smell cupcakes?
Do you smell cupcakes?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Did you make some cupcakes?
No.
Oh,
I always smell some.
okay. Can you give us like 15 more minutes?
Yeah.
Thanks, Bubba. I love you. I'm no concept of time. I might as well have said 30 seconds or a year. He doesn't know what time is yet. Yeah. Have you and Kait talked about having kids together?
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
Yes. That was actually one of the earlier conversations that we had. And just as a disclaimer, this is how I wanted to approach relationships and how I think is the best way, especially if you're later in life, as far as like not 20, and you want something that is going to stay long term, is being very transparent about what you're looking for and what you want in a relationship. And so early on, I think we've talked about this. We had our podcast and he assumed I was married. I was interested. Obviously, he didn't read into that much. So I started to watch his stories, and someone asked him if he was going to have more kids. He said, absolutely not. I don't want any more kids. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, I guess, he seems wonderful, but we don't want the same things. And then obviously, like, as we got to communicate more, and I told him, like, I heard, you don't want to have kids. I don't know if this will go anywhere. And he was like, well, I wouldn't. How exactly did you say it? Like,
I said I wouldn't deny you that if that was something that you wanted.
Yeah. And so even knowing he was open to that, I never forced it or put pressure on you to do that. It was something that in time with our relationship, he came to want to do as a father.
Yeah, as a byproduct of getting to know you more and seeing how you showed up and how you've shown up since, I was like, I'd be crazy not to have babies with this woman.
So, yes, we have talked about having children, and I don't know if you want to talk about your side of that.
I have to come off testosterone. There's a lot we could talk about there, but yeah, I've been on hormone replacement therapy, so prescribed testosterone for like 7 years at this point, and before that was on copious amounts of testosterone, and so it's always been in my body. And when you come off testosterone, this is why I have so much fucking compassion for women in menopause, because I'm dealing with one hormone being out of my body, and it wrecked me.
Yeah, he's grumpy.
It made me irritable. Yeah, well, that's not what made me irritable. The fertility drugs make me irritable, the enclomiphene. But so when you've, okay, so twofold. I have a vasectomy. So in order to get that vasectomy reversed, I have to be fertile. I have to have my luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone have to come back up to where it says my testicles are now creating the hormones needed to produce, right? So In order for that to happen, I have to come off testosterone, because when you introduce exogenous testosterone to your body, it shuts those two hormones down. Your body's like, oh, well, he's getting testosterone from the outside. We don't have to produce our own anymore. Anytime you introduce an exogenous hormone, that can happen, especially in plentiful amounts. And I was on plentiful amounts there for many years. So the degree to which it impacts your fertility depends on many things: genetic factors, how long you've been on testosterone, the dosages used, etc. Right? It's a miracle that Denver was conceived, with those things being the case. Now, that being said, I have a vasectomy. I got one after Denver was born. Because at that point, I was like, I don't want any more. I got a wonderful child, and I don't plan on having any more. I'm going to end on a win. Obviously, that's changed. So I have to get that reversed. In order to get it reversed, I have to be fertile. So I have to come off testosterone, which I have. I think I've been off of it for at least probably going on a month now. But I've been on the fertility drugs for 2.5 months. Those fertility drugs are HCG and enclomiphene. So I'm rotating those. So when you take testosterone out of your body, I've obviously voiced concerns about that with you because of how, one, insecurities about how it would affect my body physically, loss of muscle, maybe gaining of some body fat, decreased insulin sensitivity, like all the benefits that testosterone brings to both the male and female body, completely gone, right? And then also the concern around the irritability and the mood changes that those fertility drugs can bring, namely enclomiphene. So we've experienced that. I get waves of irritability here and there, and I'm not always conscious of it. We've had a long conversation about that today. So that's something that I have to be conscious of. It's something that has impacted it's impacted my libido. I'm not allowed to talk about this anymore, but it's
You can talk about you.
okay. I just don't want to. All right. So it's impacted sex drive. It's impacted my overall energy a little bit. There's also been some positive carryover. I have found that I am way more focused, because I'm not, how do I say this? I don't have as high of a sex drive, and that was distracting. So I'm less distracted. I'm more focused on work, but definitely net negative of not having that hormone in my body. It will come back. The enclomiphene and HCG will bring it back from the dead. How long it takes is not certain. So basically, the plan is to take those drugs to regain the ability to reproduce, and then once those hormones are back, vasectomy is reversed, and then it's off to the races. So that is what we are doing. The timetable for that is anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and so that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's the answer to your question.
How many you want? 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 2. 2 it is.
Do you want to?
Yes, I've committed to 2. I said after 2, I go back on testosterone, and if the third one happens, it happens.
Okay.
So by the grace of God. Can you 2 make a video on advice for empty nesters? Okay. We can make a video on that. Okay. Maybe we talk about, this is a good one. Please help with weight maintenance, protein and calorie intake after significant weight loss. I am now, and what's next? So basically they've lost the weight. What do they do now?
Beautiful question. So first, I'm going to make a few assumptions here. If they land, great. If not, then DM us. So I'm going to assume that you followed Maverick because you asked from his questions, meaning that you've probably tracked protein and maybe total calories. Fantastic. So current questions for clarity for you to think through are you still losing weight on your current calorie intake, or are you at weight maintenance with your current calorie intake? Awesome. Are you doing a lot of cardio, or are you getting a lot of steps? Is this not sustainable long term? Right, so we have 2 columns. You have your input column and your output column, right? And you've leveraged these variables to get to where you currently are. Awesome. Now, if we want to move into a lifestyle position, we want to look at, okay, where is the largest piece that you don't feel you can sustain further? Are you struggling with a lot of hunger? Are you irritable? Are you waking up at night because you're not sleeping because you're hungry? Okay, we need to play with food first, meaning that we'll keep activity consistent. If you don't have time in your day to get all your steps in, if you're feeling overwhelmed with the amount of movement that you need to do, right, you want to cut the variable that's impacting your life the most, basically. So you want to look at that, and you want to make those adjustments first, meaning calories. Let's say you're adjusting cardio or energy output as far as steps, activity factors, whatever it might be. Okay, cool. We're going to keep food consistent. Remember, the more energy that you expend, the higher that your hunger cues are going to be. So if you start to pull back activity, you're not burning as many calories as you were previously. So your hunger may stabilize, especially if protein and fiber are where you want them to be. And if you are struggling with hunger, make sure that protein and fiber are focal points of what you're doing. Outside of that, again, just like when you were dieting, you're making adjustments as needed. So if you do want to increase food, I typically look at 100 to 200 calories a week, making sure that we are maintaining weight loss with the disclaimer, if you cut carbohydrates severely, adding them back in will cause weight increase. It does not mean it's body fat, but I've talked about this before. Every gram of carbohydrate or glucose pulls 3 grams of water. And so understanding that when you increase carbohydrate, you will see weight increase, not because it's fat, but because there is water that is associated with carbohydrate storage that is good and will help with performance. On the energy outside, making sure that you leverage the calories that you're adding back in to increase the intensity of the exercise as far as strength training that you are doing. If you are increasing the intensity, you're increasing the total volume, meaning that you're adding another stimulus for adaptation. One of the best times to put on tissue is a post-dieting phase. If you drive additional calories and you're intentional, this doesn't mean you have to earn your food, so do not take it that way. What I am saying is that your ability to have higher energy, put in more effort towards the adaptation. If you want to put on tissue after weight loss, which a lot of people do, then being intentional about how you structure periodization in your strength training program coming out of a deficit is important. So those are the things that I would start with, and you're going to want to play those variables out, asking yourself the questions: what is impacting my life the most right now? What do I want to adjust? And how do I do that while keeping a temperature check on my weight, body composition, and all of the other things that are impacted when you go into a calorie deficit and also when you come out. But you still have to carry the same habits over. Your behaviors don't change. The food sources that you ate in a calorie deficit shouldn't really change. The portion sizes will change, but the quality of your diet should not change. And this is also why cutting out foods you enjoy or you're going to add back in the aftermath is not useful for you long term. So habits and behavior should stay consistent. Portion sizes will change. Just like the time investment that you put into activity during weight loss, the activities will stay the same, but the time commitment will change. Similar principles, we're just adjusting the variable as far as the threshold or the temperature gauge in which we've deployed them to come into a place where these things are sustainable for the rest of your life.
So that's Kate's flavor. Here's Mav's flavor. If you're at the goal weight, like if you set a weight that you wanted to get to, or maybe you're at the weight and you're like, here's ground zero, and now I want to, for instance, add shape to my body. That's going to require a surplus, but we don't want to go into a huge surplus. The same concepts apply that got you, as far as especially the things that she just hit on, all the context there, or especially around food choices don't change. If you've been weight training, that doesn't change. You don't train differently just because you're in a different phase. But if you look at your body now and you objectively just say, I want to add shape in these places, that means building tissue. So you're going to have to shift your focus from scale movement to gaining strength. That strength, every bit of strength that you gain will have a carryover into building tissue in the places that you want it. So now it's time to shift from just purely weight loss to getting stronger. If you're not lifting weights, I highly recommend getting into it at this point, because that's the only way you're going to take advantage of the calories that you're eating if you choose to go into a slight surplus. Slight surplus meaning 100 to 200 calories above maintenance max, and keeping there, in my opinion, until you plateau in strength, not your weight. I get into this a lot more in the 4 phases and stuff like that. This is why I do the 4 phases, because it's never just weight loss. Like, weight loss is just part of the equation. Most people also want to have a plan from there. Both Kait and I are, walk you through that, what that looks like, depending on your goals. But the simple part of it is just, you want to build muscle. That's going to be a lot of strength training. It's going to be more calories, but not a whole lot more. You want to be very careful and methodical with when you increase calories and how much you increase them by. Because once you go into a surplus, if you want the majority of that caloric intake going to building muscle tissue in the places that you want, then you need to be very gradual with when you increase calories. Activity needs to stay up. The only thing that really changes is if you haven't been lifting weights, you need to start lifting weights, and you're going to now increase those calories. If you're happy where you're at, that's a different story. I still advocate lifting weights, and all the same principles apply. But you want to continue. It's hard for me to imagine somebody wanting to stay where they're at, especially if it took poverty calories to get there. Like, if you had to get down to like 1,400 calories, 1,300 calories, to get to
Well,
a
that's
weight.
relative to gender and body mass.
We're speaking to women.
So, okay, body mass.
Hmm. You mean lean body mass? or
Right,
body mass?
1,400 calories for some people is going to be their maintenance range.
I
Right, this is
agree.
where I don't like the idea that coaches push you must be able to eat 2,000 calories a day. Absolutely not. Not true. That is a lie. And
I
you are
agree.
not broken if you can't do that and gain weight. Like that's ridiculous. So
To your point, 99% of the women in the demographic that we work with, which is women over 35, between 30, 35, 55, none of them start over 2,000 calories. None of them. They're all between 1,600 and 1,900 generally.
okay, yeah, and again, like just for something else that I hate to see is like you don't reboost your metabolism. So anybody who's saying that is just going to put you on a reverse diet because it gives them an excuse to maximize how long you work with them in order to get the results that you want.
Oh,
But I
I'm so
digress.
glad you said that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it though. People will come into my program defeated, or I'll get on calls with people that are like, my coach wouldn't diet me because I couldn't eat 2,000 calories. And they're 56
God.
and they work a desk job and they're lucky to get 7,000 steps a day on a weekend, right? It's like, that's not realistic. So it's just asinine. Either way, like
Crazy.
your body's significantly more complex. Needless to say, right? That's why I alluded to, right? Pick the thing that you are struggling to be consistent with the most as far as the trade-offs that you've had to make. And if it's a food thing, then okay, we're going to keep activity up. We're going to look at training intensity. We're going to make sure that we're putting excess calories to good use as far as the adaptations. And this is also why I know a lot of people get triggered by weighing themselves. But when we look at long-term success with weight maintenance, people who regularly weigh themselves are able to do that. If you avoid something, it's because you don't want to look at the number because you think it says something about you or it's a place of permanence. You can weigh yourself every day. The scale will give you a different number. Let that be the evidence that says your weight's going to fluctuate, nor is it a place of being absolutely, 100 and X amount of pounds permanently forever. It's just everything is not static. It is incredibly dynamic. Ka-chow.
I think we got that one. Great job, baby.
Yee.
I'm kind of flip flop between like fitness nutrition questions where we get a lot of value and then personal questions. What religion were you raised in, and do you still practice it?
Religion.
So again, let's keep it.
I can't. I mean, I can. It's just like so not.
We'll
Kate.
just.
I was raised Christian.
Okay.
My mom did not push like religious doctrine on us. She did push faith, having faith in something. But it wasn't like you have to believe this or like take this literally.
Any specific denomination?
No, not non-denominational.
Okay.
Just Christian. So yeah, that's how I was raised. I actually was pretty nihilistic for a long period of my life.
What's nihilistic mean?
I didn't believe anything was worth it. There was no meaning in anything. What's the point of doing anything? There's no higher purpose. Not necessarily atheist, but just nothingness. Empty is the best way to describe that. And then through that, I actually hit rock bottom and I prayed. And I'll never forget that day because that day I was like a counterpoint in my life. And so having faith reestablished for me and being able to feel through that allowed me to find purpose again. And so I'm not saying everybody has to believe in anything that I believe in, but I do think having faith eludes or alleviates a lot of the pain and suffering that we will experience because right, wrong, or indifferent, our brains are wired to find meaning in suffering. And so just like if you've read A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which is an incredible book, I would recommend everybody read it. It outlines the way that your mind is shaped in order to find meaning because it alleviates the pain and suffering that we experience as human beings, regardless of whether we want to or not. You don't get to pick that. So having faith in something helps you stay oriented towards something, especially as someone who strongly believes in values. Those things are the hierarchy towards the thing that you believe in the most. And the thing that you put on the highest pedestal, especially like oriented towards what Jordan Peterson would say, like that is your God. That is what you have purpose in. And so you believe in that, and then your values stem from that faith.
So, but then the next part of the question was, do you still practice it today?
Yeah, I would say I have a very strong faith in something that is greater than myself. And I think that that is important, again, mostly for quality of life, hope. I think a lot of people need hope.
Would you describe yourself as like agnostic with Christian values?
Potentially.
Okay.
How would you describe me?
That's how I would describe you.
Okay.
And it's very similar to how I would describe myself as well. I grew up, I have a very interesting interesting upbringing when it comes to faith. I was brought up Southern Baptist. We actually church hopped a lot because everywhere we went, it was important to my parents to have some kind of. I grew up like in the Baptist church. I grew up like as a child in the Baptist church, going to Bible study, and I think my parents wanted to give me Christian values, which I appreciate. It's the same thing I would want for our kids. That's why Denver goes to a Christian preschool. Now, that being said, we witnessed a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of corruption in the churches that we attended when I was growing up. And then furthermore, I saw a lot. I went down to a very, very, what would you call this? Like traditional Southern Baptist church in high school. Like everybody would rush the altar, to repent, and the pastor would be very almost like call people out by like to their face and tell them they needed to repent for their sins and you weren't allowed to drink. And every Sunday, the same people were rushing the pulpit. So like that, all this stuff, because there was corruption there as well, it kind of made me. A few more minutes, Bubba. I promise. All that stuff made me very, I guess, pessimistic toward faith. And I lost my faith for a while. I lost it in college because then I went to FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and the people leading that service were the shittiest people. Like as far as like what they did behind closed doors, it was in direct contrast to how they were portraying themselves. So after all that, I got really fucking lost in faith. I was like, what is this? Like everything I've been exposed to with the Christian faith has been hypocritical and judgmental. I don't align with this. At the same time, I don't really align with anything else. And then I had a Bib studies class in college, taught by a pastor, but he was brutal in how he explained the canonization of the Bible. He had no biases. He was just extremely by the book, and this is historically accurate. This is how the Bible was formed. This is etc. And I learned a lot, and that gave me actually I loved that class. It was a class I really, really enjoyed because I learned about how the Bible was formed. And there were some validating things in there as well about people interpreting the Bible literally and everything. Fast forward, I hit rock bottom in my life, and I'm at 20, so I was 29 or 30. I hit rock bottom, 29 I think, right before when Denver was born, and I needed something to find, just like you described. Like I needed something to believe in because everything it seemed like was failing me, and I didn't really have a direction in life. I lost purpose. I gravitated to Buddhism for a little while. I went to a couple non-denominational churches, and my spirituality was lacking for a long time. At the end of the day, it's still a quest, but now I'm in a place where I do acknowledge the existence of a higher creator. I can't, for nothing else other than the simple fact that there's certain things that science has limitations with, and I simply can't explain. And then I'm almost done. I promise. I know you want to. I know. I'm almost done. I promise. This has been a long one. I know. Now I'm in a place of, Christian values I fully align with. I'm not a big proponent of organized religion just because of what I was exposed to as a child and early adulthood. But I do value the Christian values. I value the values of Christianity.
I think so. A couple of things that I want to express that you guys can agree with or disagree with. And if you have disagreements, DM me because I'd love to have this conversation. I actually really enjoy this topic of conversation. Like I have friends who are Jewish and we talk about the differences between Christian and Jewish faith and like where we align, where we don't. And so one of the things that I genuinely believe is that a God would want me to question him, right? And so if I'm not allowed to ask questions around religion, faith, then I automatically default to not engaging with somebody who's going to come down on me because I do not align with hypocrisy. I don't think God is a controlling God. Otherwise, like we wouldn't have the freedom of choice to do what we want to do in our lives, right? There are consequences, good and bad, to anything that we do. But one of my biggest beliefs is that anything that comes down on you and tells you what to believe is more of indoctrination than it is giving you the permission and freedom to explore a concept and a construct, or again, your faith in something. So I very much disagree with organized religion that is telling me what to think or what to believe. And And that's why I didn't stay in church. I think there's value in going to a good church. I think there are many good pastors. There are obviously bad ones. There's bad players in any industry, no matter what. But I think it's also one of those things where I would encourage you to explore it for yourself without the outside noise or pressure of people telling you what to think. I think if you allow yourself to think for yourself, you will find a path that aligns with you. Again, whether it's faith in the universe, faith in a God, faith in whatever, having faith in something is something I would encourage everybody to do. And then outside of that, the last point that I'll make that I think is important and that I very much believe, most people will get involved with something because they want to find a space that they fit in. The problem with that is if it's not authentic to who you are, you will put on a mask in order to participate. Same thing happens in church. People show up, they put on their smiley faces, and then they leave, and then they're in a fight. They do not live the values. They just talk about that. They judge other people because it makes them feel good, better in the moment. And then they walk out and they aren't those things. And so it's more important that you find values that you believe in, that are good for you, and that make you better by living them out literally. Not spoken values, not ideas, not things that sound fucking good, but doing that. And I think if you want to know what people believe, watch their behavior, because it's very good to say the right thing. It's very difficult to do the right thing. And so that would be my piece of feedback around like the values in themselves. It's not about finding ones that make you fit into something. It's ones that you align with, that you believe in, and that are best for you and bring you the life that you ultimately want to live, even when it's hard.
Well said. I agree. Thank you for, I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I had something I was going to add, but I think you very well covered it. Do you think ladies should be doing cardio, HIIT, and how much a week?
Yes. Cardiovascular health is one of the most important things that you can engage with, especially if you want to avoid having comorbidities later on in life. So cardiovascular health, I think, is wildly overlooked, especially if you're in very niche spaces of the internet like bodybuilding. Well, they'll talk about, I'm not doing any cardio. That's not something that I would necessarily celebrate. So your heart matters, and taking care of it also matters. As far as the types of cardio, you can look at different cardiac zones. If you're going to do HIIT, and again, I'm not anti-HIIT. I think a lot of people just have fun demonizing things. HIIT has a place. If you want to work in zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, cardiac zones, which is just going to be higher heart rate zones for you, and being able to train that. So especially if you look at like quality of life longevity metrics, HRV is important. So how fast your heart rate comes down after being highly elevated, or how fast it goes up. If I needed to run away from a tiger in the woods or something, like my HRV is phenomenal. And being able to improve that over time as far as health, quality of life, and longevity is important. So don't do it back-to-back days. 15 minutes, most of you are actually doing true HIIT, because true HIIT is all out fucking effort. It's very difficult to maintain that. It is not running a mile. It's barely running 100 meters, which is difficult. So that's like 13 seconds. I think my 100 meter was 13.1, right? That's very difficult, all out effort, but that's max. So your ability to do that for longer, like when people say they're doing HIIT for an hour, no, you're not.
No, you're fucking not.
No, you're not. Like as far as like what a human being is capable of, even the best Olympic athletes cannot do HIIT for a fucking hour. It's just not realistic. That's not what it's built for. So if you're able to do it for an hour, you're not actually doing HIIT. That being said, you don't want to do HIIT back to back. It does require periods of recovery, just like strength training. So I would do it 2 times a week max. Tabata is a great place to start. If you guys want to look at HIIT metrics that you can engage with, Tabata is great. I would look into that. Intervals are great. But again, it's an all out thing. So I would say no more than 3 times a week with 24 to 48 hours of recovery between.
I have a pretty different take on this.
Love it.
Not that anything you said was wrong whatsoever. But if I think about the people, or the person asking this question, how many times a week is completely relative to your goals? There's no set number I can give you, or she can give you, that is the perfect number that you would hit and then get to your goals. It is all relative to your energy expenditure and if you're in a calorie deficit or not when it comes to weight loss. Now, that being said, when we think about what drives the outcome that you want, most women that we work with, or I work with, or whatever, have worked with throughout the years, they want to see a visible change in their body. And that usually comes from muscle tissue. If I were to choose, not that you have to choose, but if you held a gun to my head and you're like, you have to choose lifting or cardio, it's going to be lifting 10 times out of 10 for cultivating the result that you want to see. Now, that also being said, what's up?
I'm clarifying the question because you're alluding to a few things that I didn't address because I didn't think they were in the question, and I don't think
I didn't
that
say
they
you
are.
were wrong. I'm just adding extra context.
Okay.
So, because again, I also understand these. Yeah, remember this is the Q&A on my and I usually understand where these questions are coming from, and people usually just want like tell me how many times to do it, but it's relative to a lot of things. That being said, I'm so glad that you hit on the fact. I would take it a little further, and I would say that the majority of people who claim they're doing HIIT aren't actually doing HIIT. The vast majority. People think that if your heart's beating fast, you're doing HIIT. That's not the case. HIIT is a very specific type of training, high intensity interval training, meaning in that interval, the on interval, your heart rate gets what 180 plus
Yeah, and one of the best ways to do this is like what are those bikes called with the
stationary bike,
no
elliptical,
no
spin bike.
God, like it's like a wind bike or something.
Oh, assault bike.
Yes, you
We
want
have one.
Yeah, no, those things are awesome. And if you want to be able to look at that metrically, you can tell how many watts of power that you can put out when you're giving your max effort, right? But it's not because it's hard, it's not because you're tired, right? It is you will be out of breath, maybe passing out. I've definitely thrown up a few times. Like it is not a fun
Yeah,
mode of
it
exercise.
sucks.
So again, but like relative to even if your goals, again, my bias will always be towards longevity, health, quality of life, not aesthetics. So my answer is all contingent upon those things, which I think I did preface in that answer. But just as far as like body transformation, will it help? Absolutely. There's no way it doesn't help other than if you're somebody who does HIIT and then sits on your ass all day. Or it's just like people that think they worked out for an hour and they should be losing weight, but they don't do anything for the rest of the day, that they're out of the gym. It's like these things are tools, but the baseline habits of your behavior fundamentally have to be in a place that allow for that thing to be an outcome instead of a compensation pattern. And if you're living in a compensation pattern because you refuse to get up and walk during the day, to prioritize your nutrition, to look at the total calories, to make sure that you're eating protein, to get adequate sleep, to manage your stress, emotions, whatever it might be, you're just looking for a solution that is outside of you, a tool or something that you can do that will alleviate all of the chronic underlying patterns of your behavior that have gotten you here. So you have to be willing to address those things and then add in what is effective, efficient, enjoyable, and sustainable for you on top of that baseline layer.
I just want to add two more things. If you, the only time I would not recommend HIIT is if you're actually doing it and your recovery from it is hindering your efforts with weight training. If it's taking away from your weight training, in my opinion, you need to do less of it or replace it with lower intensity cardio. Because if it impacts your weight training, that's the highest leverage activity for body transformation, for change, adding shape to your body, for making changes long term. And if we're looking at long term, it's the highest leverage activity long term because if you lose skeletal muscle, you lose BMR. You lose BMR, you're going to have a hell of a time with your body for the rest of your life. So when it also staves off osteoporosis, all the good things that resistance training brings. If your efforts to force weight loss through HIIT are now hindering your efforts in the gym with weights, then it's not worth it. You're now counterproductive. Last thing I want to hit on, all the bullshit around it, raising cortisol, just ignore that shit. It's not, the cortisol rise is acute. It goes, it's short term. It's not impacting your fat loss efforts. You're fine.
Last question.
Yeah, let's do one more. Oh God, something about ancestral supplements. It's horse shit. Don't take it. Waste of money. Stupid. Nobody's saying that. One thing I want to say is that when you guys ask me a question and your phrasing is, what do you think about this craze of, and then insert whatever supplement that's in your algorithm, or what do you think about this XYZ craze? It's only a craze because you've clicked on it and the algorithm is showing it to you. The algorithm only shows you, ads only target you when you've already shown interest in whatever that thing is. Companies who also offer the same product will target you based on you clicking on another company's ad. They can you track this via pixels. It's not actually a craze. It's just because you keep clicking on it.
All right,
So
I have a
stop clicking
question
on
for
it.
you.
Okay,
Did you have one? Or were you scrolling?
go ahead.
After lifting for 20 minutes, I crashed for days, sleeping well in perimenopause, 80% consistent with nutrition. Any tips?
I don't believe you. But that being said, like when someone says I'm 80% with nutrition, you're probably more like 50. And that's, look, I'm not trying to piss you off. It's just the reality of based on data of working with thousands of people. People usually drastically underestimate what that actually means. Now, that being said, get your hormones checked out. If you want to just take all the guesswork out here and stop wondering what's going on, get your lab work done, test your testosterone, your progesterone. If you're over the age of 40, estradiol, DHEAS, get a full thyroid panel run, TSH, free T3 and free T4. Check your cortisol serum and see what's going on. And that'll take out all the guesswork you have. If you're deficient on a hormone, work with a practitioner who understands how to optimize women's hormones and fix the issue if it is hormonal. Outside of that, it could be a number of things. Could be, I don't know, could be lack of deep sleep. You could have sleep apnea. You could have, you might think you're getting good sleep, but like 8 hours, but then you check it on like an Oura ring or something else, and you're only getting like 15 minutes of REM sleep. I mean, could be a lot of things.
Okay.
I mean, that's all I got. It's with that amount of information, it's just really hard to say what it exactly is. I could just throw things out there and see.
Okay.
What do you think?
Energy. I mean, perimenopause. I'd look at sleep quality. I would obviously encourage them to get their blood work done. I would look at lifestyle. I would look at stress management. I would look at anxiety. I would look at environment as far as like triggers, stimulus. How much self-care do they engage with? If it is a woman who also has children and is working a job, probably minimal. So creating pockets in your day where you can just like fucking breathe for 2 minutes. I think it's really important. That doesn't make you selfish. But being able to regulate your state is also incredibly important, especially as you age and stress or buckets of things that you take on, especially if you're somebody who has people-pleasing tendencies. So you say yes to a lot of things. You like to feel useful. You will probably bite off more than you can chew, which will cause further anxiety and stress, again, relative to all of the other dynamics and intricacies of your life. So those are other variables that I would investigate in the nutrient quality for sure.
Beautiful. I agree.
Good job.
Guys, if you enjoyed this, let us know. If you have questions for us, you'd like us to hit on the podcast, DM them to us, and we will do so. We just read questions straight from the Q&A that you all submit. So please keep doing that. If you enjoyed this, leave a comment, leave suggestions. This will go on YouTube. So if you like this, let us know. If you hate it,
Fuck off.
go fuck yourself.
I say that playfully. Everyone who takes it.
Yeah, don't. Yeah,
Personally.
we're just messing with you guys. Oh, dude, my arm's asleep, but I gotta keep it around you. Let's get silly now. It's time to get silly. Have a great day, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening.